A very good morning to you, and of course it's the midweek edition of Kakaki, the African Voice, and you're welcome if you're just joining us. Now we're talking about the police pension fraud. Of course, some will say scam, and let's see what's going to happen towards the interview of the interview, which is what is about to commence. Now, the Senate Committee probe of the administration of pension in Nigeria has turned into a harvest of scandals.
Indeed, a harvest of scandals, especially the revelation in the respect of the management of police pension funds.
First, it was the police pension task force team that opened a can of worms when it informed the Senate Committee that officials of the police pension office were merchants of fraud.
The task force's allegations range from outright theft by pro-pension fund officials to the operations of illegal bank accounts and the withdrawals of large sums of money from such illegal accounts to cover their trades.
Well, the officials of the police pension office have since accused the task force of wasteful spending, undermining pension administration, opening of illegal accounts, to even engaging in fraud.
Well, in these exchanges of accusations, some officials of police pension admitted that their superior officers indeed used the junior officers' accounts to steal pension funds.
They told the Senate Committee that between 2007 and 2011, their bosses credited their accounts with over 30 billion naira.
And these monies, lots of money, these monies were withdrawn cash as soon as they enter the accounts of these junior officers.
In one of the allegations, officers said to be involved in the scam were able to withdraw up to 200 million naira every day in order to empty the accounts of any incriminating large deposits. Can you imagine that?
Well, in her testimony to the Senate Committee, former chairperson of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Farida Waziri, said, and I quote, "Banks are not helping this country. They want funds at all costs. They could not have stolen these billions if not for the banks, and they know that." End of quote.
And the managing director of Guarantee Trust Bank, Abuja, told the committee that 3 billion naira of the pension funds were lodged in his bank. And then suddenly 2 billion was transferred to EcoBank without the authorization of the Accountant General of the Federation. Now, this revelation cast a doubt on Nigeria's over-publicized banking reform with its provisions of whistleblowing mechanism. It also raises questions about the effectiveness of the Financial Intelligence Agency of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. These are the issues we will engage with this morning. And joining us in the studio, we have Emeka Okengwu, Management Consultant. Thank you. Chief Emeka, he's spoken about corruption. I talk about accountability. Now, we look at the case of Abdul-Rashid Maina, who was supposed to have been leading the task force and was supposedly said to have been in possession of 220 million naira, which he said he used for the biometric exercise, and of course 210 for the local biodata. But after subsequent investigations, we found out that some of the monies were lodged in bank accounts in 3 different names with 3 different identities against recourse to the rules of financial, to the rules of financial institutions. Now, some ask, why wait till now to actually find out the loopholes in the banking system? It took this sort of exercises, it took this sort of case, it took the probe, it took the committee to be able to come out with this for us to know that these are happening in our banking system. Obviously, it's been happening for a long time. So that brings my mind to the role of the EFCC in the government, especially in the banking sector. Do they have to wait for cases to come up before they actually go out to actually find out the loopholes so that accountability will be more effective in dealing with?
I'd like to take it from the perspective of impunity, and then all of us will get out of the box and they will probably climb back in. First and foremost, you're looking at the system, and in every system you have what you call your values, your norms, your ethics that now accumulate to become your legal frameworks. And as long as something has legislation or legal backing, in Nigeria, impunity is backed by legal frameworks. With a stroke of a pen, somebody can say to you, you can transfer, because the law allows him to transfer. So when you're talking about agencies like the EFCC, you need to actually now understand why and how the EFCC was set up. Do we need an EFCC when we have a D department of the police? This is impunity. So when we're talking about impunity, EFCC was established out of somebody's impunity. Because what you need to do in a system is to first and foremost understand. Each time we talk about cabals in this country, people will just look at one small unit of the so-called cabal and then start holding on to them. You're holding the small fries. Because all of us know in this country that it is close to impossible to walk into any bank now and get 20 million naira cash. You will need to start calling all the branches, sometimes even out of the city, to be able to start mopping up these funds. But having said that, I said to let's get out of the box, ladies. First and foremost, where did we get to where we are today? Somebody wakes up and says, okay, fine, we've had a pension that's been running there from 1961, 45, up to 2004. And for us to be able to integrate this pension, let us get something they call PENCOM. Yes? And then PENCOM is supposed to now be running, with what they call the PFAs, or the pension fund administrators. And then when monies are collected, they are supposed to now be remitted to these PFAs, and then notice given within 7 days of this remission. Are we all aware of that? And then somebody is able to now accumulate all these funds and keep it. And then somebody now uses one little red barrel to say, you approved. After all the long grammar they have written in A, B, C, D. That is illegality. That is encouraging impunity in Nigeria. So when we're looking at the banks, first and foremost, I have my own opinion about banks. I mean, if you ask me, I will say we have money lenders who wear suits to work. Because in other clients, in other countries, we are busy looking for money to fund our budget deficits. Other countries are establishing pension funds to fund infrastructure. And nobody has looked at that perspective. Nobody has looked at that. If you have all this money, how is it possible? Why is it possible for people to be able to take it away? So you are looking at, first and foremost, let us in trying to now look at the role of the EFCC. First and foremost, my sister, the law allows budget to be approved and allows you as DG to start spending the money. Until one Alibaba amongst the 40 thieves starts blowing the whistle, you are safe. You can eat all that money. The only time the EFCC gets involved is when there is an alleged fraud. Whereas the EFCC should have gotten involved from the day one you are planning a budget. Because a budget is supposed to be a financial plan that you have cast in figures. So if you're talking about the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the first crime should be when you're putting your budget together. Have you done the right thing? The moment you allow that budget to be put together and is passed into law, trust me, until somebody says that the man is doing the wrong thing, there is nothing the person can do. What it is we need to do first and foremost, let's put definitions here.
Okay.
Because when we are defining a bank and we're defining what a bank can do or what a bank does, we are now able to now understand their operational models and their policy trusts. When you have a country where you do not have one bank that is developmental in nature, and you have licensed commercial banks, these people are traders. Profit is the ultimate. You see, my brother here talked about the girls that are sent out to go and get deposits. It is all about profit and loss. Way back in those days, you used to have bank managers that had desk of solid minerals. Way back in the days in Jos, banks were funding solid minerals. So you had geologists working in banks. These days, all you need to be able to work in a bank is to walk in and say, my uncle is DG and knows 3 other DGs. They make you assistant manager now. So let us first and foremost look at these people you are trying to say banks, banks, banks. The critical mass here, my people, is that we must be able to look at our system. There are 3 sectors of Nigeria. What we have, the public sector. What we call the private sector, that is actually a department of the public sector. And what we call the rail sector, where the rest of us are and nobody knows we are there. How come the banks are not funding this rail sector? You know why? You need data. You need studies to be able to fund the rail sector. But let me tell you what you need to be able to fund the private sector. Contacts. All you need is to know somebody who has a contract to supply diesel to AIT, which is a government agency, or to BON, and you are a multi-millionaire. So taking it from what my brother has said and about regulation, I think the first thing we need to be able to appreciate in this country is that we do not, I've said this on AIT before, we don't have an economy. What we have is economics. And until you appreciate the difference between an economy and economics, you see all these stories you're talking about, a boy having 200 million in his account, the bank manager not showing red alert, this person not showing this. These are the small fries. Is it possible for you to be able to move that kind of money when the approval limit of probably a police commissioner is 5 million?
Okay. All right. And then, Chief, you've spoken quite now we look at the, you've spoken about corruption in the banks. It has been recycled. It's been there. So it's not as if, no, it's something that is happening. And, of course, Mr. Babatunde has spoken about EFCC having its place. Now let's look at the legislators, the lukewarm attitude of the legislators. And, of course, you see, we know the word in the grapevine is that they are also corrupt. Now, we look at the fuel subsidy probe regime going on, and everybody is claiming innocent. The companies that have been allegedly accused are claiming innocence. And of course, the financial houses cannot actually defend reports of what these actual figures stand for, knowing that this has been ongoing. And we have the legislators who are supposedly supposed to be in par with all the probes that are going on. So if everybody is claiming innocent, who then is guilty? And how do we go about finding out the culprits if you say that there is no, we are only practicing economics, not economy? So, right.
In this studio, during the fuel crisis, I came in here and I said to everybody in Nigeria that the thing was a scam and that it was a fraud here. And people started sending out blogs, go and occupy Chief Emeka, go and do this, go and do that. And I said, government had come out with a position to say, give us 6 months. And we will show you what it is we are going to do with the Shaw program. And I said, what I think we should be doing is not to politicize this crime, because the moment you politicize crime that is legally backed, you know where we are now? Are you looking at the papers? Lawyers are busy. Refuters are flying. Do you know why they can fly those refuters? Because the way this fraud was conducted was what they call paper trail. As long as I'm seeing this signature signed by this person, you have done what it is we asked you to do. There's a legal framework. So when the legislators gather, for me, it is with a lot of respect to that hallowed chambers. It is grandstanding. Because all the things you have said, I mean, did you watch the House thing yesterday? Somebody says, oh, put this one here. Somebody says, oh, put this one here. So after wasting all that time, you end up now carrying a recommendation to the executive. And then somebody says to you, if they don't do anything, then we'll now look at the option of bringing in the civil society and private lawyers. So what are we talking about here? We are talking about an orchestrated, a plan to be able to keep me and you. Have you heard about the Roman circus? The Roman economy was busy, collapsing. And what was Nero doing? He was catching people and feeding them, and the crowd was cheering. You know what it is we're doing? We're cheering what does not have any legal basis to be cheered. Because by the end of the day, you accuse a minor. The proper thing you should have done to get right to it is that we have statutes and we have laws and we have agencies that are empowered by law, okay, to prosecute after investigation. Had it been we had included those agencies into this matter, these people writing refutals now would have been looking for bail. Are you there?
Yeah.
Had it been, we included these people inside the Senate committee and expanded it to become an investigative committee that now had the powers to be able to now bring to bear whatever legal instruments available to them. By now, probably Mena would have been where he was explaining how 3 accounts, but because this is an inquiry, this is a committee, what are we doing on television? By the time me and you go to our houses, the next thing Labour is waiting for is, okay, let them increase fuel price, money, more money for people. Okay, we can talk about this, but let me tell you what it is we need to begin to do, especially for those of us who are 50. We need to look at ourselves and tell ourselves that we have failed our children.
All right.
Because I'm looking at young people who are sporting beds, and I remember myself 21 years ago, and at that point in time, I had graduated and left the university. Are you listening to me? So until we begin to now, first and foremost, you are talking about from the highest authority. Can I ask a question? If President Jonathan is not a dictator, he's just holding one office, and that's what a lot of people are forgetting. If he decides he wants to prosecute the people who are going to steal this fuel subsidy money, can he do it?
Why can he not?
Because the people are going to bring out contracts that allow them to supply you fuel. They are going to bring evidence that your accountants or your auditors, which you are fired, actually now said that they brought in the fuel. They are going to bring in evidence from the tank farms, existing or thereabout. This is all about this is all about something legal tying you. So I thought that the transmission agenda would have looked at this whole structure called Nigeria, and then looked at how we can be able to now, in place a system where justice and not mercy begins to be the order of the day.
Now, EFCC is coming to a time when these cases have read up, like we discussed earlier. And you talked about having a system already in place to check and balance these acts. Now, the financial regulatory bodies, especially in a case such as this, would have gone into red alert, even before the EFCC came, to actually bring to the forefront what was really happening in the banking sector, but it did not. So what would you say is the cause of this? Is it that they are just weak, or they don't have people who are accountable enough to actually bring this to the fore?
They cannot. Not that they did not, they cannot. I tell you this, our system, our budgeting system is reactive, it's not proactive. We run annual budgets. Okay, we've not been able, we'll talk about fiscal responsibility, we've not been able to run what we can call fiscal budgets, budgets that are program or project driven, budgets that are matrixed, where you say, okay, Adobe, you take from step 1 to step 3. After step 3, Babantunde takes over. By step 6, Madam is taking over. By step 10, it gets to me, the DG. Now, when you have Adobe and the DG, okay, cashless or cash, money is money. Cashless even makes it a lot easier. And like he said earlier, Babantunde says, it is all about I can get away with it. Because this is a system that is so integrated. And I just asked you a question. Everybody has an approval limit, even here where you work. Now, at your approval limit, you're supposed to be approving probably 5 million. And Babatunde is DG of AIT. And all of a sudden, they come and catch you an Adobe that 20 million is missing. Adora, sorry, madam. 20 million is missing from AIT accounts. They catch Adora and catch you. Could you have done that without Babatunde?
Definitely not.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So until we're able to put an end, make this thing back and front end. So what do other people do in other crimes? First and foremost, if you look at all the pension funds, the 10 biggest pension funds, actually Japan has the biggest. I think theirs is about $1.3 trillion now. You have countries like Norway. You even have South Korea. You have Brazil. They are using this thing to tie to their infrastructure development. What does that mean? That fund is part of your budgeting process. So before you approve a budget, these budgets are tied to programs.
But you're speaking of a place where the system works, and we're talking about the system here.
You asked me about the system development.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to you that system is all about what you want to work. let me tell you, I have become a fan of the both of you. Once I wake up, once I turn on my TV by 6 o'clock, I see the both of you. And I'm wondering, do you sleep here? Is there a hotel around? Where do you stay? You are fresh and ready. Do you know what this is? It's all about the system. Because you don't do it, you lose your job. It's unspoken. So we're not talking about Nigerians who are unruly. Well, let me first of all get to something that Babatunde said about Nigeria. It's also important at this stage that we define who Nigerians are. In those days we were younger, we say UNN and others. We are not more than, they are not, because I'm not part of it, more than 15,000. No, about that. In Nigeria, these are the people who are chopping our 4.7 trillion, 4.4 trillion. Who are they? They are the executive, the legislature, the people in government across board. Now, if you look at our budgeting system, there is nothing in our budgeting system that helps AIT to grow. That is why you are in court with your bankers today. There is nothing about our budget that you have benefited as workers of AIT. The only thing that I've done is to now introduce the Pension Act of 2004 that forces your organization to pay money belonging to you to them, and they steal it. So if people are not, if you don't want to face these things, if you want to come and keep, EFCC is a problem, this person is a problem, the problem is that we don't have a system. The system of government we had was a company came in here, they are called Royal Niger Company. When they were leaving, they left us with the same way they ran the company, and that's how Nigeria has run. So we're just an extension of the Niger Royal Company.
So what should be done to strengthen a better system?
It is not strengthening, madam. It is not strengthening. It is agreeing that what we have can't work, hasn't worked, won't work. Because it is procurement driven. It does not have any room for development. We don't have any infrastructure in this country that was developed based on an integrated approach. Not one.
Okay, if you're talking about integrated approach, I agree. But I want to put this to you. He's spoken about not working and agreeing that it has to work. What people say is it stems from a recycling of power. The powers before the powers that be now have actually come and, met it that way, continued. The next era comes in, and it's continuing. And so we're talking about something that is stemming from the top. So how do you actually, ostracize that?
The recycling of power is just a product of the fact that it has become a private concern. What you call Nigeria is a private concern of those same people mentioned. What we need to do is we need to change the power equation in the country so that power is seen to flow genuinely from the people. If power flows from the people, then you can start planning development with the people. People-centered development planning. Because what we have now is just, whatever plan they have is plan that is tailored towards their private interests. That is just its ab initio. Go to any government agency, whatever plan they have, whatever input they are making to whatever plan they have, is about what can I get? I have a company that does this. I have a brother that can supply this. How do you plan to it? It's like working to the answer. It's not about the people. I think we need, because I cannot but just agree with him, that what we have here is actually not the Nigeria of Nigerians. It's the Nigeria of a so-called Kaba. The Kaba know themselves, and they are the first to call Kaba. They are the member of the Kaba, but they are the first to call Kaba. And I think what we need is that the people themselves must take power. And that's why we need to go back to building Nigeria from the grassroots, to know that the communities where we all come from, those community associations are actually the Nigeria, and that we must find a way of plugging them into development planning, into planning for Nigeria, because those are community development associations, those are development union. They actually reflect, in most cases, the genuine aspirations of the people. But the question is, tell me, even in the local government, how many of them care about the development union? Do they factor? Are they a factor in planning even for a local government? They are not.
All right, since the system has not worked all this time now, with everything said, because each time we talk about, there's no parastatal or agency or ministry or, probe that we talk about, and the bottom line each time is corruption, maladministration, fraud here and there. That is the bottom line. Now, what comes to my mind is that the only people left to do something about this situation is the people, the Nigerians themselves. They are the only ones left to do what is to be done. Now, the Freedom of Information Bill, the FOI bill, has been passed. And finally, people have, it is legal to ask now for information and then it be given to you. Because a people that is not informed cannot ask questions. A people that is not informed cannot push forward any cause. Now, what do the Nigerian people have to do? What must they do to see the systemic change that is needed right now?
The first thing is that we should thank Raymond Ebosi. I don't know him, I never met him. I've been here a couple of times, and each time I go away, I said to myself, if we had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stations, Channels is doing very well. You've started this fight. You started this change process. But I think what we need to do more is to begin to form cells. I have this group that we call Grow Nigeria. And in the Grow Nigeria group, we are all about listening. Let us look at our pedigree. Let us look at where we're coming from. Let us look at what makes us happy and what makes us proud. And begin to now put memo. Like he said, no matter how good a program you have is, no matter what solution, I don't want to digress here, because I mean it's like going into something that's very private. But I had gone to a minister to talk about what they call the stratoflow, machines that was supposed to be helping, aid the Ministry of Power, capture water running from your so-called dams. And I don't want to tell the story of what happened with it, but we're not going to give up. I think the first thing we need to do is that, like Babatunde says, the civil society had done very well. The only way I didn't like it, and I'm going to say this publicly, was that they now got involved in the politics of PDP and ACN during the subsidy thing. You understand what I'm saying? Right now, I am waiting for the civil society to do the same things that they did during the strike, but not to take to the streets, but to now bring lawyers, to now bring in people, to now start enforcing the recommendations of the subsidy regime, because this is the first time we are getting a document that is hitting at the soul of the beast that is eating us up.
And the Chief, one of the interesting things as well is the capacity for the National Assembly taking up the attitude of whistleblowing, and I'm wondering what the executive should do in that arm, because people actually is something that is actually a method of witch hunting and dog eat dog, So it's really it brings us to the precise question: why the probes, why the committee? And at the end of the day, you find out that the people who have actually set up this committee have found wanting. So who probes the prober?
Dora, let me tell you what has happened there. There's this Igbo saying that if you have an old woman, leave her wrapper alone. Don't shake. Because the kind of things that might fall out.
You don't want to say.
No. Now, what had happened was, I thought, you remember it started in the Senate. Let's not forget.
Yes.
The thing started in the Senate. And before we could say Jack Robinson, the House of Reps had taken it up. And when I was listening to Lawan yesterday, and he said that what he opened was beyond him. It was mind-boggling. So they didn't reckon. I mean, everybody was looking at 1.1 trillion. Remember, that was the challenge.
Yes, that was the challenge.
Everybody was talking about 1.1 trillion. What are we talking about now? 2.65 trillion. With NMPC.
And counting.
With NMPC getting 1.6 trillion. And you are wondering, how did this happen? So, you see, I think what it is we need to do is that the executive, asking your question directly, if we are thinking that President Jonathan is going to take that report and implement it to the letter, it's as good as asking him to resign. Let's be fair to him. Let us be fair to him. If you are asking him now to sack his minister of labor, sack the minister of power, sack a lot of ministers will go. Now, if you're also now asking him...
Is that such a bad thing? No, if they go and then you find credible people...
I am saying, Madam, you see what we need to do now is to be able to conscientize the civil society, like Babatunde says. They are the ones, the corruption agencies. I think he's secretary of one of them. The moment that document is made official, they should be able to now register that document in the CAC to make it a legal document, okay, and then tender it in a law court, and then ask for prosecution. You cannot ask me, for crying out aloud, to put a match in my house. Anybody who is expecting the president, because you don't even know to what extent he had approved monies he didn't know were going to turn out to be fraudulent. You don't know. Because with the amount of money we're talking about now, there's every possibility that they could have taken a memo and, oh, guy, you see, there's a problem in a Lokoja, we need to get fuel there, please, sir. And the man says, Lokoja, I need to, and he signs. And by the time you're reading through this document now, you have indicted the man.
I think that has been vehemently put, and almost
clearly
a crusade. Thank you so much for coming. And I want to quote unquote Chief Emeka saying justice and not mercy is viable. And I think by the time we're asking for justice, we need to ask for incorruptible judges who will actually vote on the cause of Nigeria out in the country, in the polity, and of course in diaspora. Babatunde says, let's march as an organized nation and fight the good fight. Well, it's up to Nigerians to actually come together and, well, are we going to have a revolution? One wonders. But this is what is actually like it's going to look like. We've been talking about of course, the pension fund probe and what happened to the banking reforms and the banking sector. Well, the future is bright. Like Tsunami would say, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
There's always one. There's always one.
Always one, indeed. We're joined by Chief Emeka Okengwu, Management Consultant. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. It's been a pleasure having you. And thank you for watching and, of course, contributing by viewing. This is Kakaki, the African Voice.